Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. Well, we are rolling now. Uh, Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for joining our third Public Safety Committee meeting for ANC 1B. My name is Francois Barrio. I am the chair of the Public Safety Committee, and I am the commissioner for SMD 1B02. Um, And yeah, really quick, I want to make sure that we have all of our committee members on. I think Karen Gall is, let me promote her to be a panelist because she is a member of the committee. Um, Okay. Hopefully she should be able to rejoin as a panelist. But yeah, I just wanted to welcome everybody. We have a new committee member, Carl. So Carl, I was hoping you could, I appoint you as a committee member to the Public Safety Committee. And I was hoping you could maybe share out about, who you are, why you're interested in public safety, maybe how long you've lived in the neighborhood for, and um, how about like your favorite business in the area? Because we had done that when we first started the committee. Oh, I think you're muted.
Sorry about that. Hey there, guys. My name is Carl Beauregard. I live over right next to Meridian Hill Park at 2407 15th Street. So if you're in Meridian Hill Park, it's the big white building, kind of opposite the back end of the park. Uh, I lived here since 2020. I moved in August of 2020 to the building just down the street, 2331 15th Street. I'm a dog owner. You'll see me and my dog Dot and my partner Fabio over at the park a whole bunch. The reason I joined the committee is I hope and I suspect the reason a lot of you have. I've had a hard time understanding how the neighborhood works and understanding what's available to help people and kind of like what we could possibly do. I really don't know what how to make that happen, but I've got a keen interest in. To be honest, when Miguel emailed about the committees this week, all the committees that exist, but this was the first one that was open, and this is the one that responded back when I said I'm interested. I think public safety would be super interesting to hear about. I've got all sorts of concerns. Someone got shot in front of my building last year in May, and that was wild. I'd never witnessed a shooting, and like I saw the guy run away and everything. They didn't catch him, so I'm dying to hear from MPD and things like that what's going on, and then how can I help? I have no idea. It'd be feel great to help. My favorite place around town is absolutely Meridian Hill Park. And so if I had to say if there was a business there, if you go on Sundays to the drum circle, I don't know who the people are, but there's always food being sold. And there's always like snacks and things. And I am a huge drum circle fan. And I always try to buy a snack from whoever's there just to support them. So I strongly support that.
That's awesome. Well, thank you for joining. And yeah, I'm sorry that that happened near your building. And it's there's been far too many shootings. Um, that's definitely something we want to work on, and that we'll talk about tonight. I'm sure. So here, let me just run through our agenda really quick, and then we can get started. So yeah, I was hoping to have a guest speaker tonight, but unfortunately I couldn't get them in time, and I wanted to give the speaker a little bit more time as well as give us some more time to prepare some questions for them. But I am hoping to invite Reverend Judy to our next meeting. She is one of the violence interrupters in our area. And the full ANC heard from her recently, and I had a lot more follow-up questions to learn more about the Violence Interrupter program, especially since we have had a number of shootings in the area, specifically in LaDroit Park. And to learn more about what is that program doing to try to prevent gun violence before it happens. What further resources might they need, and how can the ANC really support them? So yeah, hopefully we'll have that guest speaker next time. But just a rundown of the rest of the agenda for tonight. We'll do our crime stats and readout. I see that Officer Murphy is on potentially, or maybe someone else from MPD using his Zoom. So I'll promote them to speak in a moment to talk about crime in the area over the last month. And Karen, feel free to share out as well if you have any updates. Then I want to discuss a resolution regarding the U.S. Attorney. Apologies for not sending this out earlier. I'll be sure to share the resolution right now, and we can discuss it. Happy to answer questions and uh, ultimately I am the chair, so a committee member has to introduce the resolution to uh, recommend that the full ANC adopt it. Then I know that Leah had reached out to me with concerns about the reinstatement of several MPD officers that were convicted for crimes related to um, the death of, I'm trying to pull up his name really quick. Um,
Ron
Kayon,
Hilton. His name
Kayon
is
Hilton.
Ron.
Thank you, Karen. And so, want to discuss that and whether that's something that the Public Safety Committee and ANC 1B should weigh in on, since those officers were pardoned and reinstated. Um, the other item, there was a gun violence resolution. I had spoken recently with ANC 5F. About a gun violence resolution that they passed. I have some thoughts on it, but I wanted to get your all's feedback on it. And I do think that obviously gun violence is a huge issue, so we should work on a resolution related to that. And then wanted to discuss out of school time programming, safe passage, and then finally just some announcements and upcoming meetings and some ideas I have for the committee going forward. So without further ado, I'm going to promote Officer Murphy to be a panelist so that he can talk. Um,
Hello, everyone. Can everyone hear me?
yes, thank you so much for joining us. Really
All
appreciate
right.
the time.
And I believe Lieutenant Willer is also on the line. I'm not sure if you have him.
Oh,
Lieutenant.
I'll promote him as well. We've got two of you now.
All right. All right. So I'll let Lieutenant Willer take the lead, and if there's any follow-up questions, I'll follow up on it.
Hello, everyone. It's good to be here. Over the last month, we've had a total of 545 arrests, ranging from firearms, narcotics, robberies, burglaries, thefts, and quality of life crimes. Our crime suppression team, Atlas, robbery suppression team, and the patrol units have saturated PSA 306 and initiated these activities and cultivated these arrests. Throughout the process, we've had great support from the community members, Housing Authority Police, Howard University Police, and they've been a great asset with providing resources so that we can solve these crimes and have these apprehensions. Do you all have any questions?
Hey there, is it possible? I think you can get the data online. Is there like a website I should be looking at specifically?
And yes, it is. You can go to DC Crime Cards at dccrimecards.com, and they'll give you like a chronological or sequential breakdown of the burglaries, thefts, all the different classifications or offenses will be located in there, so you can kind of track the data.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I guess so. One follow-up question. Um, I, there was some institute in 2024 who turned in a report, like the Institute of Criminal Justice or something. Something you might have heard about at MPD, but the reason that got me interested in being on the Public Safety Committee was this report, and they mentioned that there's not a ton of people in the city who commit violent crimes. They were saying that in 2022 it was 500 folks who were repeat offenders who had multiple different things they were doing. ANC 1B is only so big. How many people could there possibly be? Like, if it was half of them, 250, like if we had like a crazy high percentage, um, I would still think like I would love to hear how we could maybe support the programs in place, like I don't know, I've only heard about the ONSE program, or like, is there anything like we should be working with? Maybe there's a bid about to happen in the U Street district. Is there anything we could be doing to plan to help the handful of folks in the neighborhood who are these troubled folks who probably need economic assistance and help figuring out where they're going in life, because violence isn't working, but we know that there are people in a small area.
Right. Well, I would say like the mayor and our command staff, they've implemented a lot of resources to negate them from committing these activities. Recreation centers, they're open. The resources are available. They just have to take the actions to retrieve those items, and they have to take some initiative to get better and do well. The resources are provided for them. It's about decisions and consequences and life choices as it relates to that. But also, back to your other question, the communities are a little different now than they used to be. Years ago, certain communities didn't communicate with one another, but once certain individuals went to DC jail, they formed alliances with other neighborhoods, individuals that would generally wouldn't hang out in Leadray Park. 37th Street have given them the green light that they can come here and they can, congregate together. And so oftentimes that's where these instances lead. There's social media beefs where one neighborhood says something about another neighborhood, and that leads to violence as well. That's why we've implemented certain resources as far as face-to-face relief, meaning we have patrol cars in Columbia Heights and in Leadroy Park. And instead of officers just leaving, it's face-to-face relief, because oftentimes they'll see us in the community. And once we leave, shortly after, certain activities would occur. So to alleviate that, we've tried to change our tactics up a little bit to deter that activity. So.
Is there anything we could help communicate that you'd want? Like, if there's one thing you'd want me to help share in my neighborhood, is there anything that comes to mind? Do you want me to tell people that this exists?
Yes, correct. So oftentimes we the Ring camera is a big deal. Of course, calling 911. We have our real-time crime center, and they have the crime cameras in the areas. And they also, once you give them access to your cameras, they can give that information to us live as incidents are occurring, and they can provide lookouts, get our air support up, and it'll aid us in having successful closures a lot quicker. So the main thing is, if you see something, say something, and also sharing that information if you had it. And like the members of 306, they've been doing a great job at sharing this information. It's really helped us a lot. And it takes, I used to say, it takes a village to raise a kid. It takes all of us to kind of have the support and to deter these activities. Yeah.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I think we have a question from Claire, and then also one of our audience members.
Yeah, hi there. Thanks for being here for us. I live at 7th and T.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously I have a lot of insight into what's going on. My first question is that I've noticed an increased foot traffic police presence around. I've just noticed you all more. So I wanted to point that out and sort of shout that out, that I have been seeing MPD just on the streets more and doing more. And I actually appreciate that. My second question is about the on time, the crime camera that's positioned right by All Souls and 7th and T. And then the two shootings that have been in the past 2 months outside of 7th and T, has that been helpful in, in finding the shooter or in your investigation? I know you can't speak too much in ongoing investigation, but I mean, there's a camera right there and people are still getting shot. It seems kind of crazy.
Right. Well, of course, a camera won't prevent someone from their activities. What it does is it gives us the information that we need so that we can track them down later and bring them to justice. So sometimes they may not think they were, I don't know their thought process behind their actions, but it's good that we have the resources available to assist us with the closures. There was a shooting on March 28th at 2nd and W, and there was another one at maybe 9th in Florida, and right before that. And so our units, they're working on it. The detectives, they have the information. So it may not be right away, but eventually we always have successful closures.
Oh, I think I mean specifically at 7th and T, directly across the street at the Wells Fargo by the liquor store.
Right.
And that would have been closer to early March, I think. It was a man shot in the stomach from a car.
Yes. Yeah.
So yeah, that was it was around nighttime, between around, I would say around maybe 10, 11 p.m. Where nightlife units was in the area, heard the sounds of gunshot. Oh, I think I'm on mute.
I'm
on mute?
Yep.
I'm not on mute, right?
You're good.
No. Oh,
You're good. We can hear you.
So okay. So in reference to that shootings, we did have officers in the area. Our nightlife officers was in the area when they heard the sounds of gunshot. Upon arrival, they observed the victims that was in the passenger side of that vehicle with apparent gunshot wounds. I believe the shot came from the outside, and we did have a trailer camera right there at 7th and T that captured the incident, and also our real-time crime center was able to provide that footage, and we was able to push that lookout out. That case is still currently being investigated, but as you write, the camera was in the area. But like Lieutenant Willis said, we don't know what their thought process are, even whether they see the camera, because the camera also have lights, sirens, in the so they do see it and they still um, do what it is that they want to do. But like Lieutenant Willis said, we because of the camera, we was able to get the lookouts and get the video footage of the vehicle suspects, and our investigators still investigating that case right now.
Okay, I understand it's not necessarily a deterrent because there's cameras everywhere and there's lights everywhere. And they're just gonna do what they're gonna do. But I was wondering if it had been helpful in closures.
Yes, yes, it does.
Okay.
Got it. And then, I'm not sure if our audience member seems like they've lowered their hand. Princess Taylor, if you would like to speak, then please raise your hand again, just so I know. All right, I'm not seeing their hand. So were there any other public safety updates, crime updates, officers?
No. So the only major incident would have been that shooting on March 28th, like Lieutenant Will already touched on. We did have officers in the area, and thank you for all the community for providing footage. And as you can see in the footage, we had officers right there in the area when they saw the vehicle fleeing northbound. So we was able to get right behind it. We got Falcon up. That case still being investigated. No property damage, no shooting victims that occurred. So that was the last incident that we had. And like Lieutenant Willer touched on, that we have face-to-face relief now, outside resources coming in to help us out, trying to deter these crimes. And also, we also had one of our outside resources that came in and conduct an execution of search warrant the other day. It wasn't in LaJoy Park, I believe it was in Columbia Heights, where we also monitor social media of these people that's doing these things. So sometimes they go on social media, they're flashing guns, and we were able to watch these videos, locate the apartment, know where they're at. So we coordinate with the apartments, got a search warrant, went in there. The last search warrant we had where they flashed guns and social media, we were able to go inside that apartment. We only was able to get high capacity magazine, but we weren't able to make any arrests. So we're going to continue to do so to continue following social media as well, because I think these the people that are doing that, they're all flashing these violent crimes on social media as well. I'm not sure why, but we are monitoring that as well.
Thanks. And I was wondering if you could give us any more insight into the back and forth shootings in LaDroit Park. I know that it seems like there might be rival groups between two housing complexes, was what I'd heard. So I was wondering if you could tell us any more about that. And then also, I know I've heard this from multiple sources now about how people are posting on social media. Are there efforts to work with social media companies to make sure this content gets taken down? Or that it's flagged faster, things like that, so that we can act on it before the shootings happen?
Well, good question. This week we received information from Intel regarding one of the individuals from Leroy Park and his video post. So after we received that the videos, we felt that of course Columbia Heights would not have liked what they observed. So we already sent multiple units down to Leroy Park as well as Columbia Heights to deter it from the beginning, because we know we have a name of an individual, so we're monitoring him. And we're monitoring the two individuals that are involved in these activities to ensure that the members of the community are safe. But yes, we're tracking social media. We can see it, and our intelligence units are ensuring that we have the information as well. So it's not just that they know it downtown. They provide that information to us, so we can provide the information to our units in the field. And if we have videos and pictures, we also send that to our officers, so they'll be aware of who to look out for.
Got it. But you can't make arrests in those cases, I guess, because
usually they'll conduct an investigation. Sometimes certain things are just videos, and oftentimes it's a little bit of an issue when it comes to some individuals having guns in videos, because they can say, how do you know it's a gun? Sometimes, so the U.S. Attorney's Office, they're sticklers about that. So oftentimes we need a little bit more. And just, even with you have prop money, oftentimes when you see individuals carrying a whole lot of money, like for videos, they have prop and show money as well. So it's always a hassle trying to get a warrant for an individual displaying the firearm on social media. So, but there have been instances where we've applied for and subsequently obtained search warrants or arrest warrants behind it, but it's usually a case by case basis, and how much intelligence you have. And generally, once you see this individual, we have to kind of respond to that area and kind of locate those individuals and observe the activity ourselves.
Got it.
That was clear.
Thank you for that. Claire, did you have another question?
Yeah, I'm a big fan of OSINT, like open source intelligence gathering, and it seems like you've been really fruitful from these social media sort of investigations. It seems like they're kind of dumb. It seems like we have some TKs in DC. So I was wondering if there's anything that the committee could do, maybe a resolution in support of like additional funding for social media. If you could speak to more about like what kind of team that you have at MPD on social media gathering, because it sounds like they're just sort of posting them openly, and that it would be a giant well if it could have more funding.
Right. Well, that would probably have to refer that to our intelligence unit as well as our violent crime suppression division on what they could do, because they are the ones that initiate like a lot of those investigations regarding the social media weapons and everything. But as far as social media, I don't know what they could take offline, or if a bill could be passed once they're displaying certain firearms or any type of violence or criminal activity, that should be removed within a certain time frame. That wouldn't come from us. So that would probably more likely come from a different division. But our intelligence division, they do a great job with monitoring this activity and ensuring that we receive the information so that we can act on it and be aware of what's going on.
Great. I'm not super concerned about the removal. I mean, as long as it's up there, it's up there. But I think as long as it's up there, I think maybe as long as you have the feel you have the resources and appropriate go to in order to take action on it, that'd be great.
Right. I mean, it's kind of twofold, because not to hold you up, but it's twofold because we don't want to see it, but however, seeing that stuff gives us intelligence and we can act on it and have some closure. So it's
post it on your Snap story if you're doing illegal stuff. I really don't care if Snapchat takes it down.
Right. Yes, ma'am.
Well, perhaps we could bring in someone from the crime suppression team or the intelligence team for our next meeting. I think that would be really helpful.
Someone from that, definitely. Yeah.
Should I reach out, or can you all ask someone to join for the next one?
Yeah. Just shoot us the date.
Okay.
And then I'll shoot it to them, and then I'll invite them.
That would be great. Thank you so much. Carl,
is it still the case that violent offenders, at least in the ones in ANC 1B here, tend to have committed 2 property offenses, committed 12 offenses on average, and the most common other offenses outside of the violent offense being property and drugs? And my really question, what I'm trying to get at is, if it's property, is there a type of property crime we should be on the lookout for? Is there a type of property crime that is, that's the most common? I mean, if it's the Ring cameras and package theft, that'd surprise me. Is it car theft? Is it, people who are smashing windows of cars are also the same people who are shooting people? I guess that's what I'm trying to get at. Is that deducible by, say, pulling the public records on court, arrests for people in the neighborhood? Is this deducible and identifiable, or is this something that I don't think we have to talk all that abstract. I think it's a small number of folk and they're probably super identifiable. So if you see that guy, that's the guy to call in. That's kind of what I'm trying to get at.
Well, back to what you were saying, oftentimes, a lot of these individuals, they are repeat offenders. Like the package thief, I know him. I know the package thief, and so, however, I've seen other videos where it was someone else, but the majority of the package thefts in PSA 306 was a particular individual. I know who this individual is, but when I was watching certain videos, I noticed it was another guy. So that's hard to tell, and I can't say just because this person's, often crimes are associated when some individuals steal certain vehicles, steal these vehicles, and they go to a certain neighborhood and they discharge firearms and they go back over here. You can kind of cross-reference and say those vehicle thefts are related to something else. But just because someone commits a burglary, I can't say that's related to a shooting, because there's no nexus between the two. But however, we do have a POI list for certain PSAs 306, 305, 301, 308, and the POI is a person of interest list, and that list involves individuals that's been involved in multiple criminal offenses and if they're associated with any gangs or crews. So we know who those players are within those communities.
That feels like the social media for the person who's acting on social media. Those feel like the social media accounts that need to be followed. Yeah.
Right. Correct. Right.
Well, thanks so much. That's super helpful.
All right. Well, unless we have any other further updates from MPD, I will let you all go. You're welcome to stay on the meeting, of course, but thank you so much again for joining. And yeah, I'll definitely reach out to hopefully bring in someone from it sounds like the crime suppression or the intelligence team, because I do think, social media is just becoming, it's obviously prevalent, and it seems like it is one of these ways that these arguments start and maybe worsen. So, like, definitely this is something that ANC could weigh in on and do some research on, just figure out what are the like evidence-based strategies for detecting these posts, for taking them down, for using that information, and hopefully we could support some more action on that.
All right, and I just want to say we're also thankful for the partnership that we've all formed together because it takes the village and it takes all of us to try to get these closures and to ensure that our neighborhoods and the communities are safer. And I appreciate the fact that we're all doing it together and we need you all's help just like you all need ours help. And I thank you.
When you say the closures, do you mean the street closures or the?
No, like with when the case that are closed with an arrest.
Yes,
and,
yes.
and intelligence, correct. Yeah, because
yes. Okay.
you all have been a great part of that, and we appreciate it.
One quick
Thanks.
question on the question of social media. Seems to be like the biggest question right now, social media, right? So I would imagine that you have, within your task force or intelligence department, I'm sorry, I don't know which particular department, but I'm sure you have a connection with those companies like Facebook or Meta or whatever it is, and deal with somebody directly from there, or are you having difficulties with that? I'm just asking because I'm just trying to figure out if I can make some kind of introduction that might be helpful.
Okay.
I think that would be like done on the next meeting. I think that would be question to ask Intel. They probably would be the best one that could tell you who to have contact with social media that can, that handles all that. Like us on the patrol side, we probably wouldn't know because we don't directly work with them like Tony Willis says. So our Intel unit kind of work with the social media.
I only asked that because I do have a couple of people that I know that are higher up and they actually deal with like, well, what do they put? They're put in the intelligence department because they actually have to like siphon through a lot of communications.
Oh yeah, that would be great. And then the next meeting, talk to Intel, and they could just get together, and that would be great.
Okay, all right. Just trying to see if that would be helpful. Okay, thank you.
Great. All right. Well, our next item on the agenda, which I think will take up most of our time, is a resolution regarding the U.S. Attorney, the interim U.S. Attorney for DC, Ed Martin. So I'm going to send it here and just give a brief description, and then I very much, want to give our committee members time to read it and consider it, and then discuss. But I do think that it's pretty short, so it shouldn't take too long. All right, so please let me know if you can click on that link and see it. But basically, just to tell you before you jump in, the resolution is calling for the mayor and the DC Council to urge the Senate to hold a hearing on the confirmation of Ed Martin. So it's not weighing in on whether Ed Martin should be confirmed or not by the Senate, but basically saying that because of concerns that have arisen regarding the U.S. Attorney, as well as positive things that the U.S. Attorney seems to be doing to make DC safer, that there should be more opportunities for district residents to be heard, for questions to be asked, and for there to be a public hearing on the nominee. So please feel free to read the resolution, and then I very much want to hear everyone's thoughts. Have folks gotten a chance to read it? If not, happy to give everyone more time. All right. I would love to hear committee members' thoughts. Sounds like you're interested in supporting it, Claire. Does anybody else have any other thoughts on the resolution?
No, just as a federal government employee, I'm gonna have to vote present.
Got it.
I'm going to vote yes. That seems unobjectionable.
I will also support it.
Any thoughts, Elaine or Karen?
I don't want to, because I'm dual, multitasking. I don't want my conversation to get on this call that we're doing now. And so because I follow what Adam Schiff did, and everything that has been going on in regards to their call for a hearing. I do believe that there needs to be full transparency. So I'm in agreement with that. But you're going to hear a whole lot of background noise, and I apologize. I can't turn them off. If I
That's
could, I
all good.
would. But I do believe in an open and transparent hearing. I did take the time to look at the request for a hearing and the reasons for that request for the hearing. And I'm in agreement with it. I see what you're asking, and I don't know if you had a chance to look at that or review the that particular date in which they had made the request for the hearing on the floor in the committee. Did you get a chance to see that?
I honestly didn't, so I would love any thoughts
I
you have.
would. Well,
And we can change language
I can
within this,
actually, right.
that's why I want to hear from you all.
For me, I think that having the full background of what was asked already, actually from the floor, because they actually have a letter that they circulated to make this request. I think I think I have it where I can share it, a shareable link to the actual hearing and also the letter, and I'll see if I can share that with you. But I think that we need to have the full amount of information about what actually went on, so that some more details. That's my feedback on that. But I can't get too much into the weeds because of the simple fact that my ongoing conversation is going to come into play. I'm sorry, but that's
No
all I can
worries.
offer right now. Thank you.
Yeah, I would love to see that. The one thing I will say is that I think if we are going to pass this, we do need to do it tonight, just because things are moving fast. So if we want to call for a hearing for full transparency, then I think we would have to, the committee would have to support it right now, and then the full ANC would have to adopt it at our next meeting. So that's just the one thing I'll say about that. And the language can change, I believe, more. The ANC will have thoughts on that. But yeah, so I don't know if anybody.
I request a I would also, I'm in agreement that we should have a full transparent hearing, even though I know it's not normal, because there was some committee support saying that that's not the norm for attorney generals. But considering some of the circumstances that you also mentioned on your resolution, those were some of the circumstances that was brought forward, but it was quite a number of other circumstances that was brought forward too. So I would suggest highly that you all look at that. I'm gonna get that while I'm now, and I'm send that to you right away. Okay, I'm gonna do that.
And I think there are other definitely I think there's a range of concerns that people have voiced. I chose the specific ones for the resolution to just focus on DC safety in particular. And I think that for now I think that the main thrust of this resolution is to hold a full and transparent confirmation hearing. So definitely, Karen, please feel free to pass that along. And you know, like I said, this is not the limit of what needs to be said about this, but I do think it's just an important first step to call for a hearing so that questions can be asked and that hopefully our DC representatives could be heard. And we could get more information since the U.S. attorney is such an important figure, and their office is so important for public safety in DC.
So this is Elaine again. I'm a federal employee as well, so I have to be present and cannot vote on this.
Got it. All right, well, I don't think I'm allowed to make a motion since I am the chair. I need to double check that. So a committee member would have to make a motion and then second, and then we could vote. And those who need to vote present can vote present.
I make the motion that we recommend that the full ANC support the resolution to request that our interim U.S. Attorney Ed Martin has a full hearing, transparent hearing.
Is there a second?
Seconded.
All right, discussion? Seeing that there's no additional discussion, we can move to a vote. So those who vote aye, feel free to say aye or raise your hand. All right, so that's 3 ayes. Those who'd like to vote nay, please raise your hand or say nay. And present or abstain, I'm forgetting what the exact terminology is. Claire, and then Elaine, I believe you said you were going to vote present. All right. The motion passes. 3 yes, 2 abstain or present. Thank you very much for taking a look at that, everybody, and considering it. And I'm sure there'll be more updates in a month from now since things are moving fast. I will say that the interim use attorney came to the 3D CAC meeting and spoke with us. So regardless of whether they're confirmed, a good sign that he is reaching out to the community and hearing. And I asked him about the concerns that many people have voiced, that he's been working to increase the papering rate and prosecute more cases, but that there's also concerns that he may be not focusing enough on district resident safety and getting involved with some politically charged investigations. And he said that he did take the criticism or the question to heart. So we'll see what happens in terms of actions. Karen, did you want to speak?
Of course, I want to speak on this.
Of course, I want to give you the floor.
I think that it was a very, very informative meeting.
I agree.
We had a chance to ask all of the hard questions that we did not sugarcoat anything, and you asked your questions fully. I made sure that everyone had the floor to ask their questions. And then, of course, I asked a series of questions that was allowing him the opportunity to measure his success as a U.S. attorney. And I thought it was really critical that we know that we'll have his full engagement. and
Yes.
he agreed to have the full, to make sure that he was going to be there often. And not only did he bear witness that he would do that, he did it in front of his staff. So his
Mhm.
entire staff was practically there. And so that was good. And then we also had our council. We actually had at-large council representatives and the various council members there, and the attorney general their representatives there, as well as press. So I think that we did a really good job. I was amazed at how forthcoming he was, and I think that he answered the hard questions honestly as he could. Um, I'm looking forward to seeing exactly how he's going to do his job. I was mildly surprised, I told him I would pray for him and his president as much as I could. And I just think that, we need to see the transparency. There is a wealth of information that has been removed from some of his previous podcast sites that people are trying to obtain that information. So I'm curious about that. And then also things that he was in control of, how he can give us some really good answers. So I think if we have a good public hearing, that it would definitely be something that hopefully would be a benefit to the United States and DC especially. So that's my feedback on it. Thank you.
Yeah. No, I think that's a great summary, and thank you again, Karen, for helping lead that meeting. It was really interesting to hear directly from him, and so I'm really glad that you could help organize him coming in. And, I think that in the same way that we got to ask our questions, we hope that there's an actual hearing where, senators and such can ask their questions. So yeah, thank you for helping organize that. Um, Unless anybody else wanted to say anything, I'll keep us moving through the agenda because I do love to have us end on time. Um, so the next item I had here was the issue. Sorry, one second. Sorry about that. So the issue of several MPD officers being reinstated after an incident that happened, I believe, in 2022. So, Leah had brought this up and had wanted to potentially look into passing a resolution regarding it. Unfortunately, Leah's feeling sick, and so she can't be on right now. So I do want to table this issue for our next meeting when she's here and she can talk more about it. But I did just want to read out a description of the event, and then if anybody had any thoughts about it or wanted to discuss it or provide further details, they'd be welcome to. But on December 21st, 2022, MPD 4th District Officer Terrence D. Sutton Jr. was found guilty of a second-degree murder, and both he and 4th District Lieutenant Andrew Zabowski were found guilty of conspiracy to obstruct and obstruction of justice in connection with an unauthorized police pursuit that ended in a collision on October 23rd, 2020. So the event happened in 2020. That's my bad. Which caused the death of Mr. Karen Hilton Brown, 20 years old, in Northwest Washington, D.C., near the intersection of 8th Street and Kennedy Street Northwest. So that's the incident in question. And, I think there have been concerns from the community about the reinstatement of the two officers after they were pardoned by the president. So we can discuss this some now. I see you have your hand raised, Claire, but definitely want to discuss this more when Leah's here, since she was the one that brought up the issue and wanted to talk about it with the committee.
Yes, does this refer to maybe what I'm thinking of is an individual was in pursuit on and the individual was on a moped, causing
Yes.
yes, okay.
Yes.
All right, that I
Yes.
just want to clarify.
Yeah, they were on a moped, I believe, and there was a police pursuit. They turned out onto a street, and then they were hit by a car that was driven by a civilian, not a police officer. But then there were questions around the officers turning off their body cameras, potentially trying to cover up what happened. So, there's news articles out there. I'm happy to send out more. I believe I sent out one already with some of the reporting that had been done on that. So I do urge everyone to just read up about it. And yeah, that is something we can discuss more at our next meeting.
Sure.
Unless
That
anybody
was
else had
just a
any.
clarification. I thought I
No.
knew what you were talking about, but I was like,
Yeah,
"Ooh,
yeah.
maybe not."
Of course, of course. No, definitely. All right, moving on to the next item. So like I mentioned, I spoke with ANC 5F, and they had some this guy named Daniel Aaron Priest, who's the chair of the Public Safety Committee there, and he had some really interesting recommendations for things we could do on our committee. One thing he did pass along was a gun violence resolution. The resolution is a bit of a beast. It's a huge resolution with a bunch of different provisions, and it mentions Secure DC and a bunch of other programs. So, I realize I just sent out that email yesterday, but I did want to pass this along to everyone. And, um, I think I feel several ways about the resolution. But my main thought is just that it's a very large resolution. So I think that we could potentially pick and choose pieces from it that we might want to support. But there was a lot of good information in there about efforts to address gun violence. So I just sent that to everybody, and it's in the email I sent out yesterday. But I don't know if anybody had a chance to take a look at it, had thoughts on it. Yeah, feel free to share out.
This is Carl. I read it.
Mm-hmm.
I was actually really surprised to see. So like I don't know much about DC crime. I would say kind of what I know about DC crime is literally in that PDF document that by the Institute of Criminal Justice, the MPD wrote in May of 2024. So
I
like,
want to read through that. Yeah, the one you said.
but like what they talk about, how like people who are committing violence in our communities, the people who are shooting folks in particular, like the gun violence, they're committing 12 crimes on average. They're over
Yeah.
they're really young. They're the kids between like 13 and 19, with the bulk of them between 18 and 20. Like it's not not a lot of old people. It's I was surprised when I read that resolution. They talk about trying to reduce the prosecutions for minor crime. I don't know what I don't know what crimes they're talking about, because like I don't candy bar theft doesn't seem important to me. But when they talk in that report how property theft and drug crime are the two most frequent other crimes that people who commit gun violence in the city are committing. And then they talk about how like these groups are committing like drug crime or like group retaliation around drug transactions. And we know that it's only 500 people. I would think the resolution would say like, hey, we figure out this cohort of people who are perpetrating the crimes, and then I learned in the report, the people who are victims are most frequently known to the assailant. So like this bubble of people, we try to connect with them, and that's what I was hoping the resolution would recommend. It says go after drug crime and not in reduced prosecution other stuff, and that makes me nervous because I don't know the other stuff. So maybe we should get specific. Would be my thought.
Yeah.
But I bet our guys could tell us. And then if there are any local programs we should try to encourage they're literally in this neighborhood people to do, I would love to see that recommended as well, because there be something. It's not like I don't know how big the high schools were you all went to, but I definitely knew 500 people in my high school. So I feel like I could, personally recognize these folks. So I don't feel like we could focus on them.
Yes. I mean, I think those are all very good points. Yeah, just to echo what you said from the folks that I've spoken to and the police that I've heard from, it does seem like there's a very small number of individuals that are engaging in the shootings and in the more violent crime. And unfortunately, many of them are youth. So we have been talking a lot on the committee in the previous meetings about how do we support our youth, provide more out of school programming for them, other spaces where they can be, so that they're not, getting into trouble. And so that is a big thing. I do see that you're quite interested in this issue, especially with the shootings, Carl. So, one thing I've been trying to do is have potentially each of the committee members focus in on a specific area and work on a resolution, or, start to do some research and dig into that. And we want a resolution at the end. So if you're okay with it, I might appoint you to be the gun violence resolution person, because I do think that we need to think really critically about this. I think ANC 5F's approach might be to write these very large omnibus resolutions. It's obviously up to the committee, but I personally think what might be a useful strategy is to really hone in on a few things and just focus on those.
So
So
the
I'm
idea
curious.
that I'd like to
Mhm.
propose that, I mean, I didn't think we talked about this this soon, but since you
Mhm.
mentioned it, as well, I'd like to see if we could work to get an ANC fund for an expert to come in to help us with, as I know the ANC did a meeting on the U Street bid that they're trying to launch. There's a
Yes.
lot
Yeah.
of there's a ridiculous amount of research on how bids can be leveraged to drive employment among youth. That was the intention. But if you ever went to the Target up the street in the first few years after it opened, it was supposed to employ people locally. It didn't employ enough of them, but that just means we could write a better bid for U Street to try to draw funds for that area, which would be great. But also we condition funding, that receive to the bid on employing
Mhm.
youth in the area. Maybe employ youth enrolled in one of the office of the ONSE people. Like, but they've got some great programs. I'm sure there must be someone who can say we know who the youth are that you got to employ. That feels like an easy one. So I'd love to put together a resolution that would attach
Yeah.
something around the bid and youth employment. That's
That's a great idea. Are folks familiar with the bid? If not, it's totally good. Um, so basically, yeah, no, there's an effort right now from the city council woman, Brianne Nadeau in our area, to pass a bill that would establish a neighborhood management authority. And basically, what that would do is help improve the area around U Street by providing additional services like cleaning, public safety, beautification, things like that. Um, and this would be similar to a bid or a business improvement district. Um, so that is one approach that the councilwoman is taking. The other approach is a business improvement district, which is where businesses voluntarily self-tax themselves and they use that money to improve the areas. So there's a lot of bids in DC already. For example, Adams Morgan in Ward 1 has a business improvement district that they use to pay for off-duty police officers to help patrol, to pick up the trash every single day on the sidewalks, things like that. And so, I do think ultimately that, this economic development piece is really important for what might be able to drive down crime in our area, and provide more opportunities for youth. So that's just a brief explainer on what it is. There's the ANC Economic Development Committee, which is focusing really honing in on the bid versus NMA question. And, regardless of what's chosen, what do we want to see? What's the vision for our area? So I do encourage folks to check out those meetings. But I do think that's a great idea to write a resolution saying, regardless of which structure is chosen, we really want that place improvement district to provide employment opportunities for youth and to really engage youth in the area. So yeah, Carl, I think that's a great idea, and I can try to connect you with Matt Fay about that potentially. I see Jean has raised her hand. Let me just promote her to Jean. Did you want to speak? I'm going to allow you to talk if you wanted to say something.
Yeah, hi.
Yeah.
I just want to sort of explain briefly that bids usually only have 2 or 3 people they hire, and then they, in general in the city, the green teams are a part of a organization that brings people that have been previously incarcerated back. So that's kind of what you're talking about. In terms of hiring, and I'm really trying to think of a way that they would hire youth, but I don't see it as that's not their priority and their mission. Their priority and mission are safety and green. Just wanted to share that.
Yeah. No, I think yeah, that tracks. I do wonder whether there are ways that the bid can support youth in the area. So I think that would be something interesting for us to follow up about. And then also what the bid would actually be doing to increase public safety. I'm curious what the actual strategies are for that. Because I know Adams Morgan does the off-duty police officers on big nights out. So I'm not sure, Gene, if you know what bids do in other areas to work on public safety.
Well, specifically in terms of hiring police or anything like that, most of them, like the downtown bid, have what they call ambassadors.
Yeah.
And it's the idea of having eyes on the street, and sometimes those people also help clean up, or sometimes they're just really there to communicate with the neighborhood. There are different versions and stuff, and I'm not saying youth can't be engaged. I'm not saying that at all.
Yeah, no.
But when you are saying, about hiring people, it's really pretty minimal. If you're going to try to put resources into the community, you're not going to be hiring lots of people. If you're focused on, the
Yes,
green
yeah.
and the clean.
I think that makes sense. Okay, well, yeah, we'll keep up the discussions, but I encourage everyone to get involved with the bid discussions because they're important. Claire, what did you?
I have one more thing, and it is Liberation Fest, which is occurring
Okay.
at the end of May. I don't know if you've heard about it, but it is a Trans Day of Liberation, which I honestly am fully in support of, which will be at like DC 9. And so I just want to make sure that we have like the appropriate MPD presence and the appropriate security so that everyone can celebrate and feel safe during all of this. And so I just want to make sure that we're tapped into it.
Got it. Yeah. I do think we should ask MPD about that. I'm curious if you have any other details about it that you wanted to.
I will send you the flyer and all of the information.
Okay.
It's going in
Okay.
concert with World Pride, etc. But
Okay, it's part of
Liberation
okay,
Fest
yeah.
happens
Yeah.
at like the beginning of Pride.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I think that's definitely a good point. And we want to make sure that everyone's safe over the summer. So yeah, feel free to share that out. You should have everybody's emails. So real fast, I don't know if people have to jump soon. I know we still have out of school time programming on the agenda and safe passage. I think we'll talk about at the next meeting. I do want to talk quickly about out of school time programming and then some final announcements, and then we can go. So knock upon. I don't know if you had any other thoughts about out of school programming or resolutions we could pass on that.
No, not yet. We were trying to put together we have like a limited support time that we could provide from 2 to about 2:30 on to about like 6 o'clock. It's a summer program. We're kind of promoting it right now to see if we can get some traction. If we can, that means the efforts will allow us to pay for somebody to be there. And then from there, we can kind of perhaps open that up to a few scholarships, so to speak, to the community and try to figure out like if there are some students that might benefit from that couldn't, afford it. So we're kind of moving forward on our own with that, but we don't really have anything else to report other than the fact that we're just trying to reach out to different schools right now.
Yeah, I heard recently that the mayor also is moving $1.5 million to summer programming for youth. So I do think we could maybe weigh in on, where do we want that money to go? Are all programs created equal? I'm curious if you have any thoughts.
I went to a couple of informational sessions they had for these grants, and a lot of it is they're trying to get people to work within the community centers that they already have. So they're trying to put some grant funding money for that. I don't really have many people that I could deploy, but if there's some other avenue to kind of put forth a proposal or something like that, I'm definitely open to trying to find some opportunities for that. We think, as far as we're concerned, we're just trying to reach out to schools and seeing if have somebody that they might recommend for us to try to create some type of perhaps what would you say, testimonial that would work. So that's as far as we've gone with that at this point.
Got it. Great. Well, thank you for those updates. Really briefly, I want to say that in the next month or so, I'm hoping to schedule one-on-ones with everybody just to get to know you guys better, talk about what you're interested in, which issues you want to dive more deeply into, and then, discuss a potential resolution that you could focus on for the next few months. Because I do think it would be great if everyone had a resolution that they're kind of workshopping and then, we introduce and get those passed, ideally, this year. So yeah, I'll reach out about that to everybody, and also happy to meet in person because, we all live in the area. So happy to get, coffee or lunch or something. We can figure out what works. Zoom calls and phone calls are also good because I know we're all busy. And, the last thing I wanted to say, and this was an idea I got from ANC 5F, but I think, one thing he said that they were doing is that he sends out like an article, either a research article or an in-depth news article to everybody before the meeting. And then they take some time to discuss the article at the meeting. And I think that's a really good idea. So I am hoping to find a interesting research article related to one of the public safety issues we've discussed, and then I'll send that out and we can discuss it at our next meeting. And hopefully that can help, inform some of the work we're doing. Unless anybody has any other announcements, I will let us all go. But thank you again for joining. I know that this was, only 3 weeks between the last meeting and this one, but now we'll be on our monthly cadence. So I'll see everybody again in early May. All right. Thanks so much. Talk to you all later.
Thank you.